What's up, gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Joshua Hall. I talk a little bit about money, travel, dating, and everything else I find interesting and or entertaining. Now, as you can see from the title of this video, we are going to be talking about Colombia versus Poland and my experiences in these places. And that is because Colombia has been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately, and so many of you are going to be looking for alternatives, and so I'm going to do my best to break this down for you. So let's go ahead and get started with cost of living. Now, as I've previously said, cost of living is a tricky thing because it doesn't factor in quality of living, which we will get to next. Now, for cost of living, it is undeniable that Colombia is going to be much less expensive than Poland, primarily Warsaw or Krakow. And frankly, it's not even going to be close. Even with the Airbnb price gouging kind of stuff that's going on in Colombia, specifically Medellin, it's still going to be much more affordable, especially for accommodations, than it would be in Poland. Because there are a lot of preconceived notions about Poland, but it is essentially a Western European country now, because it's part of the EU and it has all the benefits of being in the EU, and part of those benefits means an increased quality of life for their citizenship. So most of the people are doing pretty well in Poland. And so a lot of Eastern Europe in general actually gets a bad rap for, being a third world or second world place because of United States propaganda and all that stuff from my youth. I'm not sure how old you are, but that is how it used to be. Nowadays, they are in a much more financially stable situation than most Colombians are presently. And so because of that, their economy has obviously grown and the people there are doing much better than previously. And this is quite unlike Colombia, where a lot of people are in various industries because that's the only job they can get, for example. And I'm not going to get into detail, but I'm sure you can pick up what I'm putting down with that comment. So, for all those reasons, Colombia has a better cost of living. Now, like I said, the quality of life not necessarily going to be nearly as good as in Poland, just because Colombia isn't as well developed. It doesn't have the same level of infrastructure, nor does it have the same level of amenities. Which, I should add, by the way, just because Poland, specifically Warsaw and Krakow, are more expensive than Colombia doesn't mean it's as expensive as the United States. It's still going to be much more affordable, and your value will be much greater than the United States, but there's not going to be a huge difference like there is in Colombia. Now, I should also point out the weather in Poland, because this is part of quality of life, especially for me, not going to be nearly as nice as most of Colombia. Poland has brutal, I would say, or maybe a better word might be harsh, winters. And so it's going to be cold. There's going to be snow, and these are things that you are not going to see in Medellin, for example, where it's the city of eternal spring. So you're going to have nice weather for the most part all year round. The same can certainly not be said for Poland. However, the food in Poland is also, in my opinion, much better than the food in Colombia. Not even close. Really, I don't think there's a discussion to be had there. Now, another massive difference is going to be the women. So in Poland, I wouldn't say they are the most attractive, but in general, Eastern Europe has good-looking women, and they're going to tend to be taller and more slim than the women in Colombia, who are also going to be a little bit darker skinned, a little bit more curvy, and in some ways a little bit bigger, and certainly shorter. I would also say that the women in Poland are going to be a little bit more traditional, should I say, than the women in Colombia. And so if you're just looking for a quick hookup kind of thing, you're probably better off in Colombia. Now, traditional and conservative values have taken a whole new meaning. And I wouldn't say Poland is particularly difficult, but I would say it is a different experience than Colombia altogether, especially when you factor in how many people are going to Colombia and just straight up doing pay for play over there. And I'm not judging you if that's what you're interested in, but if that's what you're interested in, Poland probably not the best option for you, because it certainly doesn't have that same kind of experience going on there. And that goes back to what I said about the difference in the economies. The women in Poland are going to be a little bit more well educated, and that means they're going to have more opportunities as well. And this would be a good time to speak on the language differences. And so, yes, in Poland they speak Polish, but I shouldn't say a vast majority, but there is a decent level of spoken English in Poland. Now, that same cannot be said for Colombia, where they speak Spanish. So if you speak Spanish, obviously there's no problem for you, but the spoken English is not going to be at nearly as high of a level as it would be in Poland. So there are some of the important things that you need to know if you're deciding between Colombia and Poland, or if you're just looking for a place other than Colombia. Now, I'll also say there's a way to stay in Poland for longer than 90 days completely legally, and I'll probably link that video somewhere around here if that interests you. Finally, to finish this video, I'll say this. Colombia is probably better for guys who are very budget conscious. It's also probably better for guys who are strictly into Latinas, who probably want to be closer to the United States, and are strictly in it for the dating and P4P kind of options. Also, it has better weather. And I'd also say your risk tolerance is probably higher than it would need to be in Poland, which also reminds me I didn't do a section on safety. So after I finish up this safety, I will throw that in here at the end. Okay? And so the Poland will probably be better for guys who maybe don't necessarily want to be somewhere all year because of the weather issues, but it's better for people who are looking for a higher quality of life. It's better for people who are interested in the Eastern European type of woman. The education, the value system, certainly different. It's better for people who are interested in safety and security. And if you're not necessarily as budget conscious, because once again, you will have to have a much higher budget in Krakow. Wow. Thank you for visiting me. And Warsaw than you would need to have in Colombia. Also, if you want to be located closer to Europe and somewhat closer to Asia as well, it has a great location for that. Now, the final thing is the safety. And this probably should have been like the first thing that I mentioned, but the safety in these places cannot even be compared. Obviously, in Colombia, right now there's kind of an anti-gringo sentiment to begin with, but in addition to the anti-gringo sentiment, you have some serious safety concerns, especially if you're a single guy, because people are getting deleted, they're getting drugged and robbed, and all kinds of nightmare scenarios are happening to foreigners in Colombia, and it doesn't really seem like Colombia is all too interested in fixing that situation for foreigners and or tourists. Now, they are working on fixing things to protect their own people, and even with that, it's kind of a tricky situation because their own people are also into that scene, but they're mostly focused on foreigners for some reason, but not going down that path. And obviously, if you walk around Colombia, you have to behave in a certain manner or else you even increase that risk further, not to mention the level of armed robbery just in general. I mean, like I said, you can't compare the safety situations in these two places. Now, what I will say is if Russia somehow wins the war against Ukraine, which is a huge hypothetical, and there are tons of victory conditions that need to be met, I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility for Putin to stick his nose into Poland and some other countries in that area. But I would say there is maybe a 1 or 2% chance of that ever happening, because that is just a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But that is something that you do need to be aware of, because Putin could become an issue at a certain point in time. But like I said, that's a hypothetical right now. All right, that's going to wrap up this video. If you want to add anything to this conversation, please do so in the comments down below, because I know many of you have probably been to Colombia. I don't know how many of you have been to Poland, but if you have, share your experiences to help as many other guys as possible. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff to help me out with the algorithm, and I will see you in the next video. And as always, peace, much love.